Quick disclaimer. As a school teacher, I absolutely oppose all glorification of guns, bullets and knives. In this tutorial, I will model what will look like a conventional bullet, but this concept bullet is actually filled with seeds and fired at a non-lethal velocity into the ground. Any mention hereafter of the word bullet refers solely to this method of propagation. So if you just want to model a bullet, then you can just watch the first part of this tutorial. If you want to model the whole belt and have it animated into your machine gun, then you can watch the whole thing. So my tank here is positioned beneath the grid. I am working to the scale of meters, which is why my grid's so small. First of all, get a cylinder. Make sure that interactive creation is turned on with create polygon primitives, turn on interactive creation, and then from your shelf or from the menu, go ahead and create a cylinder. The lighting in my scene is causing my geometry to look a different color to yours. Don't worry about that. What we do need to do is assign a material to this. So we're going to do right click, assign new material, choose an Arnold shader. I'm going to do standard surface and call it copper. Hit enter after naming it and go to presets, copper, and just off screen here it says replace. Choose replace. If your scene goes black, you can go to Arnold, lights, Skydome lights, and then turn your lights on like this. For more on how to create your viewport look nice, check out the link in the description below. Now rotate your cylinder. I'm going to hold down the letter J for Juliet on the keyboard and then rotate this by 90 degrees like that. I'm going to hit F to focus on it. And the next step is to reduce the poly count of this, as it's going to be repeated a lot of times in your scene. So click on your cylinder, go to the tab that says poly cylinder. Yours might say poly cylinder 1, mine says poly cylinder 9, and go to where it says subdivisions axis and reduce it to 12. 12 is a really good number to reduce things to because it's still got lines at 12, 3, 6 and 9 o'clock, and it works nicely. However, if you were to deselect it, and if I turn off my wireframe on shaded here, you can see that it's actually got quite hard edges now. I'm going to need you to add a button to your shelf. If you haven't already got it, go to mesh display, hold down Control Shift while going to mesh display and go to harden edge and soften edge. And as you let go on them, they will appear on your shelf like this over here. So Control Shift those onto your shelf and then simply go to edge mode like this, drag select over the long edges along your bullet and then do soften edge like that. And then you can go back to object mode and now it's a lot softer, even though the poly count is lower. Next, let's create some round caps on this bullet here. So in the poly cylinder 9 tab, make sure you're in object mode for this bit, go to poly cylinder 9 where it says round cap, tick round cap. And you should see a sharp point at the edge of your bullet like this. Increase the subdivisions caps to about 4 or 5. The pointiness of your bullet will depend on how far you stretched it. When you created the original cylinder, you can easily stretch your bullet like this. And if you want it to have a softer front, then obviously just do that. And then go to vertex mode and move the vertices back to stretch it out that way instead. However, I'm quite keen to make that quite sharp like this. We're now going to spacebar to our side view. So hit the spacebar and go to your side view. If you are still in object mode, then you can hit F to focus and you'll go to your bullet in side view. Be very careful though, if you are in a vertex mode with no vertices selected, when you hit F to focus, it just zooms out to show you your entire scene. So be very careful on that. Now, drag select over the vertices near the front of the bullet. It's really important that you keep this as small as possible. I don't like seeing this pointy front like that. I'd rather it be very small like this and sort of hidden like that. And then just go ahead and change the profile of your bullet. So you always have to drag select all of these points in one line, then do R3 size. You're only allowed to resize these using the cube in the middle. Do not resize these using the blue cube at the bottom, because if you do that, it will only distort the shape of your bullet on one axis like this. Whereas if you use the cube in the middle, it will do it like that. So just bear that in mind when working with cylinders. So move that down, move it across, and get the profile of the bullet. You can obviously copy an image or just copy me. Try and get something that looks roughly like that. Okay, good. Spacebar back to your 3D view. So we're now ready to add the shell part of this casing. Go to face mode and delete the faces on the back of your bullet like this. Just select the ones at the back and hit delete. And we're then going to go to our multi-cut tool, which is on your poly modeling shelf like this. Click on that, hold down Control on the keyboard and click in a point fairly near the front like this. So that was holding control and then just click along like that. Then go to right click, go to face mode, hit Q to quit the current tool. That's Q to quit, or click on your selection tool like that. Hold down right click, go to face mode, drag select these long faces here, and we're going to extract them from the geometry by going to edit mesh, extract. Now make sure you're in object mode. You've now got two totally separate pieces of geometry. You can see this new one, you can smooth the whole thing by going to your new smooth button on your shelf, and this one seems to have glitched as well. Again, you can smooth that nicely. Now it's time to overlap the geometry and resize it out. In real life, these sorts of bullets have two different materials, and that's why anytime I see new material on geometry, I always have it as separate geometry entirely as opposed to an extrusion. So this new bullet, part of the bullet here, I'm going to assign a new material to that while I'm working on it. So I'm going to do right click, assign new material, Arnold shader, standard surface. I'm going to call this one copper underscore darker, hit enter, go to presets, copper, and just off screen it says replace, hit replace. And this time make this one a bit darker. Sorry, actually it's this one here that we can make darker. So once you've got your new material on there, that's great. You can go back to your original copper material and make that darker. I named it wrong because it's even darker. Great. And you've now got that. Next, let's go to edge mode and hold on right click, go to edge mode, double click on the edges at the front of your bullet, do extrude. Extrude them down with the blue arrow like that. This is such a small edge, I'm actually not going to bevel it to save poly count, which will very surprise my students, I'm sure. I'm now going to go to my multi-cut tool, hold down control and click for an edge loop round about here. Hold down control for another edge loop round about here, and that should do for now. Go to face mode, drag select all the large faces at the back, do R for resize and resize them out like this. Fun fact, if you resize with the cube, it resizes like this, which is really annoying. However, if you resize with the green plane, or a plane that's at the axis you want to resize by, it only stretches them out in this axis as opposed to the other axis, which is really good. So you can just go ahead and do something like that. Go to edge mode, double click and just resize this one up slightly so that it's positioned like that. That's looking better. This edge here is big enough or I'd probably bevel it. So I'm actually going to select both of these edges and bevel them, because it will create a beautiful highlight on your geometry as you do that. When editing the fraction of a bevel, you need to hold down control if you want more control over it. So I'm holding control here to just modify the fraction really nicely like that. And you can see the effect that has. It's really good. Now for the rear part of the bullet, I'm just going to extend that back. I go to vertex mode, W for move, bring that back to there. I'm going to go to edge mode. Double click on these edges, hit extrude, find the blue arrow, push that down, bring that back slightly like this. I'm going to extrude this back again. This time I'm going to hit W first, and then I'm going to hold down shift and extrude using this method to about there. Then let go. I'm going to do R for resize. I'm going to hold down shift and extrude from the yellow cube in the middle up like this. W for move, hold down shift, extrude back. And we then need to close off this piece of geometry here, which can sometimes be a pain. However, if you just simply make sure you have these edges on the back here selected and look for your point that's 12 o'clock and your point that's 6 o'clock. And if you hold down shift and deselect the face that's near your 12 o'clock point, but towards the 1 o'clock side, and hold down shift on the point near 6 o'clock, that's towards the 7 o'clock side, and then simply hit bridge from your shelf, which looks like this, or it's under edit mesh bridge, and watch what happens. You've now successfully closed off the back of your bullet like this without any triangles, which can be a right pain, or faces with more than 4 sides, which will cause all kinds of problems. If you want to go ahead and bevel these edges, you absolutely can. I'm going to do it because my computer's good enough. If your computer's not good enough, don't do it and give it a bevel. Remember, when we duplicate this bullet thousands of times, we are just dramatically increasing our poly count. I am going to have to bevel this. My OCDs are screaming at me to bevel that on hold down control. I just have to do it. Every time we bevel, we kind of almost double our poly count, so be careful with that. If you just want to, for a laugh, hit 3 on the keyboard for smooth on both your geometries, you can see how beautiful that bullet looks. That's my cat saying hello, if you can hear that. So if that's all you're here for, then that's great. You can go now. If you want to turn this into a magazine like this, or a belt, sorry, like this, then you can keep watching. So first of all, let's create the black area like this. To do that, we're going to duplicate our bullet, move it back. Do not move it left or right, but simply move it back like this. I'm going to assign a new material to this here. I'm going to do right click, assign new material. Arnold shader, standard surface. Call this one metal dark matte if you want, and go to presets, copper, replace, and change the color down to black or at least to gray like this, and change the roughness up so that it's very rough like that. And then go to hold down control and click on your multi-cut tool and hold down control, and we just want to throw in an edge loop around about here and around about here for now, and then we're going to delete the rest of it. So go to face mode, shift, double click like this to select your loop of faces. Now zoom out a bit, hold down shift and drag a giant box over your bullet like that, and it will invert your selection. You can now hit delete. Now go to object mode, and you're going to need to center pivot, which is this button here that's blue on the shelf. I'm just going to work in a blue area here so it's easy for you to see. I'm just going to stretch this out to about here, and now I'm going to go to my multi-cut tool. I'm going to hold down control and middle click this time. So hold down control and middle click. You get a line in the middle, and then middle click one exactly centered there and exactly centered there, which makes sure that all of your edge loops are perfectly evened out. Go to edge mode, double click on this loop, shift, double click on this loop. We're going to bevel them. Hit the bevel button from your shelf and drag the fraction down. You may want to hold control to have even more control over it to about there. Go to face mode and click on the faces from here to here and hit delete, and from here to here and hit delete, and then skip one so it stays connected, and go from here to there and hit delete, and from there to there and hit delete. So you have something that looks like this. So it's still connected at 2 points to the left of your 12 and 6 o'clock there. Now go to face mode, select all the faces on your geometry and find the extrude button from your shelf. Find the blue arrow wherever it may be on your geometry and pull the blue arrow out in the way that it's facing, so you get a bit of thickness to your geometry like this. I'm not going to add any more details to this, but feel free to go to mesh display, soften / harden edges, so it looks okay. Now go to face mode and click on this face here and hit extrude like this. E for rotate. Now, when you want to rotate this face, double click on your rotation tool and change the axis orientation from object to component and close that down. And then you can rotate this at a slightly better axis. You can then move it up to around about there. And you may want to change the axis for your resize tool as well to components to stretch that down. And then do one more extrusion. I'm going to hold down shift and just extrude it round about up to here. And then extrude it one more time this way. And one more, and you can then rotate that, stretch that out a bit, and then extrude it one more time along there. So we now need to make sure this geometry is rotated appropriately at the top so it can intersect with the other one. Do Control D to duplicate this, and we can use this new shape up here as a guide. Go to vertex mode, select the vertex clusters over here and move them up so the top of this connecting bit is parallel like that. You can do a resize. I'm going to just set this back to world by double clicking on that and kind of just stretch those back in like that, and that's better. It means that you can now have this hanging inside there. Go to edge mode, hit 4 on the keyboard if you want to be really careful, but just drag select through these guys there, and then just do, if I hit 5, 6 and lighting on the keyboard there, go ahead and soften those out so they look better. And you've now got geometry that can sort of hang onto itself. We now need to mirror this. Now that's done. To mirror it, go to mesh, mirror, options box for mirror, and make sure your settings are exactly like mine, but that you pay attention to the compass at the bottom left of your screen. So mirror axis position needs to be set to bounding box. Change the mirror axis to, I can see my Z axis is going that way. So I'm going to do Z, and I have to do minus because I want it to go this way. So I'm going to do Z minus. Yours may be different. And then set it to merge border vertices if it isn't. Make sure this is all the same, and then go ahead and hit mirror. That looks good. If you have any problems with it connecting in the middle, you can play with the merge threshold. You may need to bring that down if you need to. And then you can go back to object mode when you're done. And I would now delete history. There's a glitch in Maya where if you don't delete history after mirroring, it can corrupt your geometry. So go to delete history, which is this button here with the clock, or edit, delete all by type history. And that's now good. Now hit W for move, and pop that over your bullet that you had from earlier. If you want to resize it just to have it hanging in there, you absolutely can. If you think the poly count I'm working at is too low, then obviously you can go ahead and do more, but I think this is the best to be safe on such a small detail. We can now go to face mode here and just make sure this clips onto the bullet. Choose the face that's just here and do W for move and hold down shift for extrude and just kind of bring that back to there. And I'm going to hold shift and extrude that down to there and extrude that onto there just to create the little clip that holds it in place. If these angles are worrying you, then of course you can shift select them both and just move them back like this so it retains the same thickness as it goes along. You can see here it's got a little bit skew. I can easily fix that by selecting these and just moving them up with the blue plane there, and that looks better. Great. This is quite a significant edge here as the bullet edges were beveled, so should these be. Hold down control, edit the flexion nicely like that. Good. Now for the box casing around it like this, simply create a plane, hold down shift before you drag out a plane and it will create a plane that's already a perfect square like this. I'm going to move this plane up a bit, and if I just move my scene out into the distance so we can see it clearly. The material for this seems to be a lot more shiny, so I'm going to do another new material. So right click, assign new material, Arnold shader, standard surface, call this one metal shiny, and do presets again to copper, replace, and change the color of this again to something dark, and then maybe just put it up a little bit gray, so it's just slightly lighter than the other one. E for rotate this like that. Doesn't matter which way around it is, we are going to make it thicker later on. Do W for move, and now if you hold down V for vertex, and I'm going to snap this over the front of my bullet. So you hold down V for vertex and you can actually see that this will snap 2 points on your bullet. If you go hold down V, and you should be able to click on the point right at the front. If you can't see it, make sure you turn on wireframe on shaded, hold down V and snap it to that front point like that. You may want to go into X-ray mode if you have to, which is shading X-ray, but I don't need to. That's good. Now this is exactly centered to the front of your bullet, which is really handy. And you can then resize this down to fit. You made the space bar to, I'm going to hit F to focus to see which view I'm in. Turn my lights on. I'm actually going to turn on my wireframe only mode for a second and resize this down so it's just a bit bigger than the bullet itself, like that. Spacebar back to my 3D view, and that's great. I'll move it forward a bit like this to give a bit of breathing room. Next, we need to add some detail to this. The easiest way to add detail to this is to go into polyplane here. And I'm going to need 6 subdivisions width, 6 subdivisions height. Go to face mode, hold down tab, and drag select a square of faces like this. And then do shift, right click, circularize components like that. And then resize them down a little bit. And then you can delete them. You've now got a hole in the front like this, which I might just double click on it and make it smaller like that. This case seems to be rectangular. I'm going to shift select the top vertices, shift select the bottom ones, make sure you don't get any on the sides, and just flatten that out a bit like this. If you need to select these guys as well, you can, and just resize that down to about there. Great. Go to face mode, double click on all the faces, extrude with the extrude button. Don't hold shift, it can cause glitches on this type of thing, and put that to there like that. I'm now going to bevel these 2 edges here, so hold down shift, double click on these 2 edges, hit bevel, increase the segments to 2 and increase the fraction quite big, but make sure that you can still see the end one there. And then this geometry now, it has more than 4 sides, which is really bad news. So if you want to go ahead with your slice tool and just turn that into a quad like that, and just click on that vertex, hit enter. Whoops, I missed. I forgot I could have turned symmetry on up here, but I can't be bothered. Great. Next, duplicate this geometry. Control D, W for move it over there. E, hold down J, rotate it this way. W for move, and pop that over there. You can now go to face mode and delete the bevel on this side to save geometry. So drag select the bevel, hold down shift, deselect those, delete that. Object mode, W for move, intersect it into there. Go to vertex mode, drag select these vertices like this back to about there, and try and get it even on each side. I'm not going to be too scientific about this. And then you can do Control D, move this to the other side. To flip it, you click R for resize, hold down J and flip it inside itself like that. While you're holding J, it should flip through itself like that. As I've done that, you can see it's gone really dark and weird. This means the normals have reversed, which means it'll be inside out in a game for like this. If you go to shading, go to shading, back face culling, you can see in a computer game it will kind of behave really weirdly like this. So go to mesh display, reverse, now everything's fine, and then intersect this like that into the geometry there. Now we need to create a very small cylinder to go on the top of this. So the top and bottom of this have a cylindrical effect sort of grill to them, and this is one of the last steps that we need to create, and from here on it's duplicating. So go to create a new cylinder, move it into roughly into position, resize it down, right click, assign existing material your same material as this bit, hold E, hold down J for rotate, and rotate the cylinder like that. Go to your poly cylinder tab for this one, reduce the subdivisions axis down to 5. This is a very small cylinder. Any less than 5 it becomes a cube, so just do that and move it down. Try and get the flat bit, a flat edge on the bottom and a pointy edge on the top to keep it looking the most cylindrical, and just pop that along there like that. You might want to resize it down more and along like this and pop it into place. If you deselect it, you'll see some hard edges on it again, but don't worry about those. You can just go to edge mode and drag select them, soften those out, and even though it's only got 5 sides, you'd never know. So we can now go to face mode, hold down tab. So I've kept the edge of this just in a bit. You can change it later if you do it wrong, but hold down tab in face mode and paint select these guys. Do W for move, extrude these out and rotate them. I need to just set my rotation gimbal to object, or you can change it to world if it helps. And so it looks like that. E for rotate, hold down J and rotate it. If it rotates really weirdly, undo a couple of times and freeze transformations and try it again. Move this to there like this. So there's a very small sort of edge on the inside, and the outside's like that. And hold down shift and extrude that all the way along to there for now. Let's focus on this corner bit. When rotating pipes and things like this, it's really bad to have this small section here. So I usually just get my slice tool, hold down control, middle click while holding control to put one exactly in the middle. Go to edge mode, double click, do R for resize. Make sure your resize tool is set to component so that it comes along at the right angle. And then you just simply stretch it, kind of like this kind of stretch, but just stretch it that way a bit. And then do W for move. You can also set your move tool to component and just move that out a bit like that. So it just has a bit more of a proper bend to it. Just a little bit more, I think. Much better. I'm just going to move this out so that you can't see the corner. It will go and skew like that. That was actually quite annoying to do that. So I'm just going to go to vertex mode, move these vertices roughly to the middle, go to face mode, delete these guys, go to object mode and do mirror on that. So that's mesh, mirror, options box. This time I can see it's my X axis I need to look at, and it's going X minus. So I'm going to X minus that, mirror that way. I'm going to do object mode, select my geometry, do delete history on it, or delete all by type history just to be safe. Go to vertex mode, drag select these guys and just kind of line them up. Make sure that this is set to world and snap, bring those over there like that. Great. And you can see that we need to just go to maybe delete some faces on the ends here. So drag select these guys, hold on shift, delete those, and you can do just soften the whole object like this, and that looks a lot better. I want this to actually intersect, so I'm going to go to vertex mode. I'm actually going to bring these guys back to here. I'm going to go to object mode, and I'm going to click on my multi-cut tool, and I'm going to go spacebar to my top view, F to focus. I can't focus on it. Go to object mode first and then hit F to focus, and now you can see it. Go back to your multi-cut tool, which is there. I want a line to be through both of these at the same time, so I can just literally hold down nothing and just drag a line and edge through these. If I hold shift, it becomes perfectly flat. There you go. And now I've just cut a line that's exactly in the right place in both bits of geometry, which is good. And I can go to vertex mode and, face mode. Shift, double click around there. Shift, double click around there. Get the whole loops of faces there. Go to extrude and just simply find your blue arrow, wherever it is, and pull the blue arrow out to give these a bit of thickness like that. Not too much because they're pentagons. That's good. Now we can select this geometry and do Control D for duplicate, W for move, and put it underneath like this. Remember, we want the pointy edge to be facing out. So I'm going to do R for resize, hold down J, and resize that inside out. If this happens when you flip things inside out, then you're going to need to just do freeze transformations and then try it again. R for resize, hold down J, much better. It has gone inside out, so I can do mesh display reverse. That actually created a weird error, so instead I'm just going to simply do Control D for duplicate, move them down there, and then just hold down J and rotate them like this, and it's fine. Okay, so that goes in there like that. Great, let's combine all this. So drag select through all of those and hit combine. Okay, and the final bit we need to do is just add a little bit of geometry on this bit there in between the sections. I'll do that with a new cube. Just put that nearby like this, W for move, and just pop that into place and just kind of get the thickness of it right like that. You may as well just delete the face underneath like this. Right click, assign existing material, which is just off screen, and go to your dark metal again. Pop that in there. If you just turn on your wireframe, maybe just line it up with an edge like this, and do Control D, line it up with another one like that, and they seem to be set back a bit, so I'm just going to pop them around about there like that. And the tops, I'm just going to rotate them ever so slightly so that they can sort of nest inside the next piece of geometry along, and I might just combine them quick. Go to face mode and just do an extrusion up like this, and do Control D, and I'll just have a couple on the sides as well like that, and Control D, hold down J, spin them around like that, and move them back like that. Okay, good. Now you can select all of these bits of geometry here, making sure you get the top bits and all the sides like that. Hit combine on those. Do Control D, hold down J to rotate the back one back, and let's just check that it aligns before we do anything else. I'm just moving it back actually, just checking that it aligns nicely before I move on. That's looking good. Now the bottom ones don't. If you want to move geometry while it's combined, you can just double click like this, and then just move it, the faces of it while it's combined, and it plays ball. So that's good. And you can now move that back to there, and then go to edge mode and select these guys in the middle, these guys in the middle, these ones, and these ones. Do W for move, hold down shift, extrude those out to there, and you just need to go to edge mode, drag select them, and soften those edges out. And now if I turn off my wireframe, you've got yourself a good bullet segment like this, that if you select the whole thing, so I just need to combine that. Yeah, I can just combine the whole object now, ready for next step, and do Control D. You can see it should all fit snugly like this. Well, there's a bit of a problem though. I just need to make the gaps a little bit bigger because of these sections here. So if I just pop that there, I'm looking at these guys. I need to select the vertices and the tops of all of these rectangles, just move them up a bit like that, and the same with these ones. And you're good to go. So you can now delete the top one and get ready to duplicate this. Now to create the magazine, move this into position, scale it up. So the tank that I've got here that one of my students has made, make sure it fits, and let's say I'm happy with that, and to just kind of have it near where you need. So in this case, it's going to be coming out of the bottom and into the top. So I'm going to now create a curve to put these on. So click on your bullet, just hit F in your views to find the front view and spacebar out of that. Find where you want the curve to begin and end, and I'm going to start from where I want it to begin. I'm going to do create curves tools, CV curve tool, and just create the line for your belt of bullets. So I'm just going to kind of go around here like this. You can always modify these points later. I'll show you how. All the way over the top like this and into there. Now, I'm actually going to have mine set to a loop. You don't have to, but I'm going to set mine to my edge is actually going to go all the way through the middle like this. If you don't want to have a loop, don't worry. You can just leave it not connected. And I'm just going to go down to there, and then it can animate. And then to go to your cursor tool to close these gaps here, go to curves, open, close, and then you can spacebar back to your 3D view, hit F to focus to see where on earth that went, hit center pivot, which is this button here, to center that back to where you need it. And you can see I need to modify the curves here. I'm going to go to Control Vertex and drag select the vertices at the bottom, hold B for brush, and soft select by holding the letter B and kind of move this that way, and that should work nicely. Go to object mode to come out of there. You can tap B on the keyboard to get rid of that. Now, to make this bullet go along here, we need to, well, we'll fix the orientation of it in a minute, but for now, click on the bullet and simply go to, you might want to save your work. This might crash your whole thing, so hit the save button. And you might even want to duplicate this for backup as well. So we're about to animate this, that we're using Mash. We'll take this as prisoner and never give it back. So duplicate your geometry, save your scene, and the bullet that you're going to connect to this curve here, you actually now need to go over to the middle of your grid. And so I want you to do center pivot with this button here. Once you've done center pivot, I'm going to want you to move this over to the exact middle of the grid. Now hold on X for X-ray. You have to find the middle of the grid in your scene. Hold on X for X-ray and move this bullet to the exact middle of your grid while holding X. So this bullet is now exactly in the middle of my scene. So if I move it this way, you can see it is exactly there in the middle. So that was holding X to snap to grid. That's exactly in the middle. That's great. Once it's there, you're going to need to do freeze transformations while it's in the middle of your scene, and then do delete history and freeze transformations once in the middle of your scene. And finally, go to modify bake pivot. So the pivot stays in the middle for the next step. And now you can go ahead and click on your tab for Mash, which will animate this and copy it lots of times. Click on Mash, click on this button here. You should see a bunch of bullets appear. You might also see a little menu like this appear. If you don't, click on this button here to bring up the Mash editor menu. And you're going to want to click on the curve and do add curve node. Now go to your outliner, and you need to make sure you know which curve you've just made. So if you just select the curve you just made, I can see it's curve 8 over here. So click again where it says Mash Curve in your Mash editor, and hold down middle click on your mouse over curve 8 and drag and hold with middle click over to this area here. Now go over to your curve and you'll see things are starting to happen. Go to where it says in your curve area here, where it says step. Go now to where it says Mash 1 distribute, and where it says distance X, drag that down to 0. Ignore this one, that's backup. And then go back to your Mash 1 curve tab and increase the step so that they fill up the entire loop or your entire curve. And then go back to your Mash 1 distribute tab and increase the number of points. And obviously, this is why we had to keep our scene low poly, because it goes absolutely wild with the poly count here. And you can see we've got a bit of a problem where, and this will happen to everyone, where the geometry is facing the wrong way like this here. So I did this intentionally because it's going to happen to you. So what you need to do is look at a single one of these and figure out what you would need to do to correct the position. So I can see all I would need to do to correct the position of this would be to rotate these sticky uppy bits 90 degrees to the left, and then this will work. So I've written, let's pretend I've written that down on a piece of paper. You might even have to rotate it again another direction, but in your head or on a piece of paper, write down exactly what you'd have to do to get these lined up on there. For me, I just have to rotate these 90 degrees to the left, and that's it. You might have to do another thing as well. Then go to undo. So I'm going to undo this 90 degrees to the left. And once your bullet pops up back in the middle of the scene on its own like that, and your Mash editor is empty, you can then do what you just wrote down on that piece of paper, which for me was hit E and rotate this 90 degrees to the left like that and let go. You shouldn't need to do free transformations again. And now you can do that Mash thing again. So it's Mash menu, curve, add curve node, middle click on this curve here, drag it over there, go to the distribute bit at the bottom, drag the distance X down, go to the curve bit, increase the step so it goes around the entire shape, go back to your distribute and increase the number of points until it fits together like this. And that looks pretty awesome. The magic trick on this is it's actually secretly animated for you as well, which is awesome. So if you just hit the play button at the bottom, you can see the speed that this goes at. That's obviously quite slow for bullets. So if you want to change the speed of this, just simply go down to your Mash 1 curve and increase the animation speed. The highest it goes on the slider is to 1. And if that's still too slow for you, then you can overdrive this value, so maybe to 5. You have to type it in to overdrive the value and then hit play and it will go. If you make it go too fast, eventually you just won't see it spin at all. So do what you think looks good. This is so detailed, my computer can't play in real time, even though I have a GTX 1080 and an i7 8086K at 4 gigahertz. So that's just how my is. But if you rendered it off, it'll look really cool. So you can see as the belt goes up to the top, it kind of bends. This is really hard to fix. And the best thing to do is really to kind of have this belt stay as straight as possible. So I'm going to actually edit my curve back. Now to edit the curve once it's inside the bullets, you could assign your geometry to a layer and template that. But I'm just going to go inside the geometry, find the little blue curve like this, and very accurately on that blue curve, do right click, control vertex, and be really accurate with that. And just drag select your entire curve, do R for resize, and just snap that back there. And it does update your geometry in real time. And then you can just do W for move and just kind of move that to where it should be. I'm just going to drag select the points near the top and see how far back I can push them before the angle gets too extreme. And it seems to be about there, which is the best I can do. I'm now going to have to actually modify the geometry to make this work. And we finally did it. So that's all fixed. And if we hit the play button, it's perfect. Look at that. So have a play with the speed that you want it to go on. But I think that looks pretty awesome. You can check out my other tips and fixes here. And if you want to see how to do something similar for your tank treads, then check out this video here. That was a really long tutorial, so please give me a like on the way out. Thanks, guys.